Okay, thank you for coming. Let's begin. Okay, enjoy. Okay, Tayyid. So last week we started the Maimer, Usefartem Lochem, and just the style of what I'm trying to do is to learn the Rebbe's words and then to just discuss certain aspects of the Maimer and maybe to add some analogies or to apply it in a way that we could make use of it in our daily lives. So this Maimer is a Sphira Maimer from the first year the Rebbe became Rebbe, 5711. There are many Mamorim and Chassidus that start with this pasuk, Usefartem Lochem, and the Rebbe began, the first question that the Rebbe asked was, why is it in the pasuk, when it describes the mitzvah of Sphira, why does it say that you should start counting after Shabbos instead of after Pesach? The Rebbe says that this was something that the Chachma Yisrael had to contend with in debates with the Karaites about when you actually bring the korban, just because of the way the pasuk was worded. If it would have said the day after Pesach, it would have settled everything. It wouldn't have added any words. It would have been clear. So why does it say Mimochras HaShabbos? That the Rebbe did not answer. The Rebbe says in order to understand this, we have to discuss what is Sfiras HaOmer about. Right? What's the spiritual aspect of Sfiras HaOmer? What's the purpose of this mitzvah? What's the idea of the mitzvah? And he says that in general, all karbonis of grain had to be wheat, with the exception of two karbonis, and one of them, the Gemara tells us why. But when it comes to Karban Omer, it doesn't say why. In the Mishnah, it doesn't say, oh, by the way, the reason why. There's no reason given. It explains, as it's known, Hasidus brings this idea that because the time of Sfiras HaOmer is about elevating or sorting through the animal soul. So it's the animal, it's about the Nefesh HaBahamis, that's why we bring barley. Barley is Michael Behema. Okay, halachically, Michael represents, Sa'ir and barley represent Michael Behema. We discussed that the Loshen of the Maimer is Birur. Birur means that I have a pile of junk and I'm sorting for the worthy objects. So in other words, we sort through the Nefesh HaBahamis and we find the sparks that are usable. Right? We're not throwing away the Nefesh HaBahamis. We're not saying, oh, Nefesh HaBahamis, you're my baggage. I want to free myself of my baggage. But we find the light. The Eibishter gave us these traits that we look at them as being negative. And we say, well, yeah, the first glance, but upon further examination, reframing, a paradigm shift, another perspective, we find a way how to redirect and elevate and use those koiches. And that's what Sfiras HaOmer is all about. And the Rebbe also explained that first we bring a korban, and then we begin counting. It's like when you go into a business, you sign a contract, and then they train you. So like there's stage 1, stage 2. And that's where we're going to start right now, base, starting from base. He spoke about there were other things also, but let's start from Ois Beis. Not Ois Beis, but Vihine, page 65, yeah? You have a different count?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me use your page. Gimel. It's different. In this is an older version. Anyway, they want you to buy it again. So, okay, page 66. So, to be more specific, I mentioned last week that the Rebbe is going to develop actually an idea in Nigla, in this Maimer. In the middle of the Maimer, there's a halacha dika thing. So bir beprotius yoser. Hine bebir nefesh habahamis yesh beis inyonim. The nefesh habahamis, the animal soul, that we deal with, has two aspects. It has an intelligence and it has an emotive. Right? There's two inyonim. There's birur hamoichin, to sort through the moichin of the nefesh habahamis, and there's birur hamidos. Vehem bezu inyonim. That is reflected in the two dimensions of Hakravas HaOmer, bringing the korban, and Sfiras HaOmer. Hakravas HaOmer, the korban, hu inyan birur hamoichin the nefesh habamis. That's the birur, that's bringing clarity to the brains of the nefesh habahamis. What's the connection between the korban and the moichin, the brains? I know these are all like holy words. We have to bring them all down. We'll try to do that soon. Neisuf leklolos ha'inyan sheminchas ha'emer ba min ha'sa'orim. Yes, we discussed that this korban is brought from is barley, which is Michael Behema. Shemoire, which demonstrates that it's right. It symbolizes birur hanefesh habamis. However, there's also a more detailed inyan that hine b'Michael Behema gufa, within what fodder, within what we feed animals, this is grain. Ba hamincha min hadogon. We could give them corn. Yeah, we could give them other food. Grain is shemoire al hamoichin. We have in Chassidus in many places, the Alter Rebbe brings it on the Likutei Torah, that grain represents the development, the openness of the brain. Right? In general, I'm not a dietitian, obviously. Right? For some reason, the Torah speaks about bread as being satisfying. Right? There's a pasuk, Lochem, levav enosh yisod. We say it in Tillim. Bread is what satiates. Other foods, you don't get full. Bread, that's it. There were plenty of people, right? What does the Mishnah say? Kachi darka shel Torah. What's the way of Torah? Pas b'malach teichel. You should eat bread and salt, not to eat other foods. I've mentioned here by Fabringen in the past that Rav Itcher Masmid and others never ate meat. There was a Yid in Eretz Yisrael, Chassid, his last name was Chaim. He was like a known person who was often in a meditative state. So, and we were like when we were kids, I remember they told a story that some years before that he had to have surgery, and he told them he doesn't need an anesthetic. He'll sing a niggin, he'll meditate, and they'll do whatever they need to do, and that's what they did. So it was real, like he came to some state of transcendence. He was really in that zone, and they said that he never ate meat. Because when you eat meat, there's a tiredness that there's like a cloud over your brain, right? So it's only to eat lighter foods.
You remember the line is not, if you don't give food, he's not scream, so maybe it's the same.
Right.
If you give meat,
Right.
For different reason he did not eat meat.
Right, so good. So that's a more coarse, that's a more, right? Yeah, it says that a lion roars after he eats meat, not after he eats grain. A straw, not from straw. You don't kick after you eat straw. After you eat meat, then you need a cigarette. You have to, whatever, it's a certain style. So the idea, the concept is that when a person eats bread,
it's staple of the food for people. Staple of the food.
The staple, yeah. But a person eats bread. It's first of all, it's meeting the need you have to eat, right? So you're not satisfying it by being gluttonous, right? There's no taiva, right? So therefore, it's not feeding the midas. It's only feeding the moichin. The fuel is fueling the brain. Okay, so and that's one akuda. But here he very often brings like a very primordial thing that when a child begins, approximately the time that a child begins to eat grain, that's when they begin speaking. So, but I'm not sure. It's right. It's also symbolic of something. So. It's understood, it's implied from the Maimer Azal that a child does not know how to call for his father. The Hasidic understanding is not that he begins to speak. It's that he recognizes, that's my father. Okay. I have a video with one of my kids. I said, you're my son. I'm not your son. He says his name. I am so and so. Right? It's too early. He's too young.
But they recognize Ima,
right,
from the beginning. But that's
well, you're supposed to say that.
Abba's, yeah. You're supposed to say what?
You're supposed to say that they recognize Imam. Right?
Oh.
No, but
no, but you're on the periphery somewhere.
Right? Who's the tati? It's too right. There's a certain point when they get it. So that's an intellectual development. That's my father. Chassidus often brings that they don't understand the meaning of what it takes to be a father. How is he my father? But they know that's my father. So that knowledge, it's not just that they could say a word. It's a hakara, it's a recognition. That's my father. So Elo, so yes, it is behema, it is barley, but it's dogam, it's grain, it's the moichin of the nefesh habamis. Shekivan sheikara midis, since the nefesh habamis primarily is emotive, is subjective. Gam ha-moichin shalah, even its intelligence is kshurim v'shayochim elamidis, is very closely tied. The thinking is only about how to get what I want. It could be very sophisticated, right? Like teenagers trying to figure out how to get out of their house in the middle of the night. But how I'm going to get money for the next fix or whatever. But it's still, it's not real, it's not the ideas, right? It's not abstract thinking. Shazeo, that's why that the dogon, even the grain, even the meichen is meichel behema. After they bring the korban shu in Yibira meichen nefesh habamis, which happens in one day. So somehow there's a breakthrough to the mayach of the nefesh habahamis to allow itself to change. Right? You have to get it through the thick head. Once an impression was made, okay, I'm ready to work on myself. And then the work begins. So then, and then what does the Gemara say? That there are two mitzvahs, lemim neyoyim, to count the days, ulemim neshavui, to count the weeks. There are two psukim. Tisperu chamishim yoyim, count 50 days, and sheva shavuos tisparloch, count 7 weeks. Bringing the korban, which is the inyan of birur hamechin, hashayachim malamidis, that refinement of the brain. In one day, tazayim benissen. On one day we get through. The counting, which is the birur hamidis atzman, purifying, elevating, correcting the midis. A good shake-up doesn't work. You need consistent work. You need process. Tzarech is birur prati. Levarer kol mido b'fnei atzma, to work through every mitzvah individually. The eidzais, in addition to working every midah individually, shehabirur tzarech is beprati pratis. It has to be very specific. We have to teach people, right? When we talk to people about how to live, we have to instruct them on how to respond. We have to say, what do you say? What do you do? Right? Sometimes we have to, like when they're preparing presidents for a debate, right? They give them all the questions that they may get. What are you going to answer if? Right? We have to actually go through all the scenarios. What will I say? You say, a shliach, he's going to an event. Maybe there'll be women there who are going to put their hand out. You need to have, sometimes without thinking, you have to prep and you have to think about and what are you going to say and how are you going to respond, not to be caught. And that's the proteus. You have to really get down to the details. Levarer kol midah kafishu klulo mikol azayim midis. Now, one of the things I mentioned last week is that I said that I read an article once that a person should improve 1% a day. And then it's going to be amazing. You think it's only 1% a day, but believe me,
it seems like a lot.
So I asked the question, what's the Torah position on that? And the answer is from Sfira Soimer, 2% a day.
How you can't close this? Why to?
He's arguing with me from last week already.
Yeah.
Because compound interest.
Because
365 days a year. So if you do 1% a day, so 300%
no,
of the year.
after
1% a
Shavuos,
day by the end of the
we're
year.
at a new level. In other words, you leave Mitzrayim, and then you got 50 days to be ready for Kabbalah Torah. That's it. So you're changing 2% a day.
50 days and 50%.
No, 50 days, 100%. They went from Mem Tes Shari to, it's at, we'll soon see, because today we'll see where the 2% are. You'll see. Because really, there are 100 steps. And every day we're two,
It's 2 steps.
it's 2 steps. We'll see. Right? So, Levader Kol Midah, Kefishu Klula Mikol Zayin Midas. Every aspect of every Midah. There is an overall biru. There is an overall understanding of a general trait. You know, what should I be attracted to? What should I be detracted from? Like a very general biru. But that's the Ein Negeh L'Poel, but it doesn't get down to the actual behaviors. Ha'ikr hu, the main thing, is ha'aveda la'at la'at. You have to work slowly, slowly. And that being patient and working slowly is bekeach atzmei, and bekeach atzmei dafke. It has to be your effort, not, this is another thing we spoke about last week, like someone who has, imagine, I gave an example, if someone has a rare currency. So it's very interesting, people want to see it, but you can't use it in the grocery store. Right? Someone who has a fantastic energy, you go to a Fabrengen, wow, you're so inspired, but you don't know how to use it on the ground. You can't use it in day-to-day living. So that's what he's saying. It's la'at la'at, bekeach atzmei dafke, little by little. Shezeu habirur b'prati pratis. That's what it means, to really get down to the nitty-gritty. Kefi shekol midah kula, it should say klula probably, mizayim midas, that every midah is klula. From 7, I'm going to send them the selection. Shal yedei zeh nasis ha'avoida ba'oifen shebechol rachacha da'ihu. Through this, when we elevate ourselves, what happens? We come to a state where we're in every aspect of our life, we experience Hashem. Every aspect, thought, speech, and action should be upright. You should be a person of integrity in every aspect, even in his thoughts. Today we just finished Beis Ira. There's a story. There was a chassid. It's more than one story. Anyway, the Rebbe Maharash, he had gvirim. There were wealthy people then. I guess it's like the beginning of the industrial age, whatever was happening. They had factories and contracts, government contracts. He had some very wealthy people. So he was going for a walk with one of the chassidim. It was Makarev, one of the chassidim. So they're going for a walk, and the chassid was thinking to himself, it's so nice with the Rebbe, Tishrei I should be by the Rebbe. You know what? Plan is, Tishrei Mitzvah, I'm coming to Lubavitch.
None of these same VIP treatments.
Anyway, then he's going a little further, and he was really like walking very close by to the Rebbe, and suddenly he had a negative thought or something. So suddenly the Rebbe stopped, and he said, "You're walking too close to me. You're in my space." Then he said, in general, a person should not make commitments for the future, even only in their mind. Right? Like we're planning where you're going to be. So the Rebbe told him you shouldn't, even machshava, you have to say beli neder or whatever, but not to make a resolution, I'm going to be, whatever. So that idea, also another, but just like by the Rebbe,
Which idea? That he could sense his thoughts, or specifically about the commitment?
That he could sense, because he was so close, that's what he was telling him. Like, you're too close. I can feel everything that's going through your mind, right? So I'd move over a little bit, but by the Rebbe, when the Rebbe had Yechidus, so the door to Gan Eden Atachton would be open. Right? Like people would wait in the whole area. Like there's a famous Zalman Kleinman painting of people waiting in the whole space. But by the Rebbe Marash, he kept the outer door closed. And there were two Gaboim. There was like an outer Gabbai who wasn't so bright and whatever, just, and then the Gabbai, the Blavik, was inside in the Gan Eden Atachton. And he would keep it clear, so you have to have clearance level 1 and then level 2. Anyway, so there was a chassid who was also, one of these Gvidische, and he was friendly and whatever, and he was intelligent and whatever. So Rav Leivik let him, he was waiting for Yechidus and he was sitting in that room, and suddenly a flood of thoughts, all kinds of thoughts came into his mind. He didn't, his youth and whatever, he was very troubled suddenly. And then when he went into Yechidus, the Rebbe Maharash told him that, when I daven, so every time when I say Ashrei, I say Zecher Rav Tuv Chayabiu. So when it speaks about memory, right? So when I speak about memory, the people in the vicinity could get, so you shouldn't be in that space during, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, Bekitzer. So yeah, all akopanim v'zeu. So the avoida is that machshava. In other words, we'll see. The Rebbe has a very interesting lashon here where the Rebbe is going. That our avoida is only about how to live in the practical world. In other words, the whole examination of is my character, like what kind of character am I? That's not our avodah. Our avodah is living right, to do the right thing. I don't know who said this. Some guy said to his kids, he says, "Do as I do, not as I say." Right? That's what in other words, watch what I'm doing. Yes, I want to live in, so the avodah of our life is to live in a place of...
Not to cultivate our character.
Right, not to cultivate our character and to worry about, just do the right thing, that's all. Akopanim, so you'll see how he says it. So v'zehu, this is why the mitzvah of Sfiras HaImir is loirak lemim neshavui, not only to count the weeks, which would symbolize the hainu birur kol midah bechlolos, just like a general, refinement, a general inspiration. But ha'ikar, the main aspect of the mitzvah of Sfiras HaImir is lemim neyoyim, it's the days. The hainu birur hamidas beprotius, chesed shebechesed, hoid shebehoid. The reason why the Rebbe says hoid shebehoid is because this Maimer is on Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is hoid shebehoid. Later in the Maimer, he'll speak about it more particularly. Until Malchus Sheba Malchus. Now the Rebbe goes into a little nigla discussion. There's a Rabbeinu Yeruchim, we're talking about the Rishon, like the Rambam's time, all the way back. When there's no Beis HaMikdash, there's a difference between the mitzvah lemimne yoyme and the mitzvah lemimne shvui. And the Rebbe will explain what's the difference. According to the Rabbeinu Yeruchim, there are two mitzvahs of Sfiras HaImir which would require two brachas, right? One to count the days and one to count the weeks. But that's only in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. After the Bechurban Beis HaMikdash, there's a difference. One is the Eraisa, one is the Rabbanon. With that, we don't make two brachas. So what the Rebbe explains, Bizman hazeh, yesh chiluk, right? The hine, yesh emrim, there are those who say the Rebbe brings the Rambam. Shegam bizman hagolos, mitzvah sfiras ha'emer, hi midah eraisa. That's very controversial, because there's no korban. What triggers the beginning of the counting? In the Beis HaMikdash, they brought korban omer, and the counting began. Right here, we're counting, but so the Rambam is saying that since Shavuos is the 50th day, and Shavuos is one of the Shalosh Regolim, so even though we're missing the korban, nevertheless the counting is midday raisa. Okay, it's a chiddush. That's the Rambam. There are those who say the Rebbe brings a Tosfos and a few others that Bisman Agolos Sfiras HaEmer is only midrabanan, right? So it's only midrabanan. Then Rabbeinu Yeruchim. So those opinions they speak generally. They don't distinguish days and weeks. Rabbeinu Yeruchim mechalek ben Sfiras HaYomim or Sfiras HaShavuos, the days and the weeks. Sfiras HaYomim, he says, counting days, Gam Bisman Hazehi Midoraisa. But Sfiras HaShavuos, the weekly count, is only midrabanan. Why? What's the difference? So Vishleim Rabir Bazal Pi'ana, based on what was explained. Sfiras HaShavuos, Hu Inyan Biru Klolos HaMidah, is the refinement of the general midah, meaning the overall energy. Sfiras HaYomim Hu Inyan Biru Kol Pratu Pracha B'chol Midah, how to live that midah, the practical application of living that midah. So Val Pizah, so what's the difference? Hine Sfiras HaYomim Sho Inyan Biru Kol Pratu Amidus, the part of Sfiras HaOmer, which is counting every day, and it represents the way we live. That's midah iraisa, even nowadays. Kivan she'inyan zeh shayich la'aveda b'payil. B'maisa dibur u'machshava kanal, since it's about practical living. She'tzricha liyos, that's required. V'yeshna b'chol esu b'chol zman, it applies at all times. Lochem chiyus Sfiras HaYomim, gam b'zman hazahu midah iraisa. She'ein in Sfiras HaShavuos, to have the power to elevate our character, to transform ourselves, it's not about the way, what we do, it's about who we are. It doesn't apply to Machshava Dibur U'Maisa. It's not about our conscious living, it's about our subconscious. Right? Today we talk about the subconscious. Really, that's what it's about. It's about our subconscious. That's not expected these days. Of course, there's a quality, it's fantastic. For a person to change themselves on a subconscious level is unbelievable. It's a greater ability, it's deeper in the soul. On the other hand, since it doesn't directly apply to the way we live, we don't have the power to change that. Hashem gifted us only with the power to live upright lives in the proper way. I want to mention something about weird. Okay, so you know what, Dalet and Hey, really, to me, Vav is a very significant Nakuda. I feel like it's, last week when I was reading the Maimer, the text that I was reading was different than what you saw on the page.
Page was different.
Page was different? Okay, I'm sorry that I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay, so now, please feel free. I didn't realize. I thought it's the same.
No, you mentioned like it's different format.
Yeah, I thought, oh, okay. I didn't realize it's mamish. The text is a different text. So one of the features of the Ma'amorim of Sfiras HaOmer is that the Rabbeim take a midah and they explain how the midah is kolol, right? There's a blend of all the other middas. How the other middas support this midah. Chesed, in order to experience the full midah of chesed, all the other middas have to support it. For instance, if I love someone, it contains within it hate for people who hurt them. If I won't hate the people who hurt them, then there's something missing in my love. So every midah requires the support of all the other middas to make it complete. So, and that's a feature in the Mamorim. So, but I realized, so here in the Maimer, what the Rebbe is going to do, the Rebbe is going to present the Chesed of Kedusha and the Chesed of Klippa. Chesed and all the variations, right, the different ways that it applies. And we hear what the Rebbe is telling us are the 100 steps. Right? What are we doing? This is what we're leaving, and this is what we're embracing. This is the Sur Meira, and this is the Asay Tov of every day. So now we have 100 steps. And it's all in one midah. It's Pashut. So let's take a look. To see how the midas work in tandem. For instance, he says, the midas achesed. Midas achesed sheneisef al klolis midas achesed atzma, in addition to the core of chesed, just to love something, she'inyonahu avas Hashem, to love Hashem. But harehi klula gami kol midas, it contains the other midas. The Indian chesed shebechesed. What does it mean when we say chesed with chesed? It's already chesed. What's chesed shebechesed? Hainu shemitzad avasi l'Hashem, because he loves Hashem. Harehu oihev es oihave Hashem. He loves those who have the same interest. He loves those who love Hashem. When you see someone learning, performing a mitzvah with a geschmack, he loves him. I've said this before, that in the yeshivas and in the Beis Medrash in 770, the Shabbos afternoon, there are some people who linger and daven for a few hours. When you're in a yeshiva with 200 bochum, and Shabbos at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there are 5 in the room davening. One's at Nishmas and one's in Kriya Shema, right? They're all aware of each other's presence. There's a unique kinship that forms. They don't have to speak. We have there's a connection that we have. He davens as a gateway. It's a very deep, right? So he says a person who loves Hashem, who is drawn to this, and he sees someone else in a deep way, so he loves him. He's mis'eder ba'ava elov. Making so too. Mitzad avasei Hashem. In addition to the way it's expressed in relation to other people. But the chesed shebechesed means that his askusay, the kolo einyonim ashayachim l'teiru mitzvasi bizrizus, right? His involvement is with excitement. He doesn't let things linger. He has an opportunity to do a mitzvah, right? Like we say, there are things that I have to do. There are things that I get to do. Right? This is fun. This is going to be amazing. Yeah, let's go right now. What am I going to? I'm not going to wait. So it's rizus. That's the ava. That's the chesed shebechesed. Then there's gvura shebechesed. Inyan gvura shebechesed hainu. And now, of course, it's very important, and you'll see how that a person should work on all of these things to develop. That's the avoida of Sfiras HaOmer, to cultivate all these things. Gvura shebechesed hainu, she'avasei l'Hashem, his love for Hashem, mizbates, it expresses itself in hate. Bekav ha'hofchi. She'soinei es menagre Hashem. He hates the opposers. V'inyin tiferes shebechesed. What's the inyan of beauty? Inyan ha'yispirus haba me'achesed. The pride. He boasts. When a person sees someone performing mitzvahs, mitadishmak, really enjoying it, he's, wow, you see, Yiddishkeit, it's so beautiful, right? it's like every once in a while, you meet a yid that does something special, and you turn around to a friend and you say, "Mi ke'amcha Yisrael." Wow, look what a yid is. It's just unbelievable. And that's his virus. That's exactly what he's talking about. And he says, look, be'ezeh midah, look to what degree, eif vifel, to what degree, yichel ha'Torah lifel ba'adam. Look how Torah could change a person. So now these are the first three, the primary pillars of midas. Then there are the lower elements, like more the part of expediting. Because in addition to the main part, the main components, klulin bechesed gam anfei hamidas. Also the branches of the midas, moving down to the hips, netzach hoid yesod, are also part of it. What is netzach shebechesed? Hainu, that is, shebitzad avosid Hashem, he loves Hashem so much that gam kashiyesh moinim u'ma'akvim, when there are those who try to get in the way to stop him from doing what he wants to do, he powers through anything that gets in the way. V'eitzes shekashiyesh hisnagdus mibachutz ve'ein le'koyachu, when he is surrounded by challenges, ki rabim komim alai, he's outnumbered and he doesn't feel like he has the power. Because of his great love, Lochem he fights them. Or just also another in the other nusach of this maimer, I don't know why they changed this. In the other version, he says that the difference between netzach and hoid is that netzach is overcoming others, and hoid is overcoming yourself, your fear, your hesitation. In other words, I'm outnumbered. I can't win these people, but I can overcome my fear and continue doing what I need to do. Whether I win or not, that's Hashem's cheshbon, but I'm not going to let it get to me. So nitzachon, netzach, is to power through those people. No one could stop me. What happens when they do? Right? So then the hoid is to keep doing what you need to do, even though, in other words, to overcome your own fear. That's the way he explains it there. Here, I don't know why, he changed it a little bit. Yeah, I just mentioned, again, Beis Iyar mentioned a story. So they printed it now, but it's in the Rebbe's Rishimis, there's a story. I didn't see it. The kids told me today that it's in the Chayal. I was telling the story. They say, yeah, we know the story. So the Rebbe Marash got a letter that all police officers, guard, whatever it is, undercover operatives should follow the instructions of this man. The bearer of this letter has the power to instruct. That was the. So once the Rebbe Marash went to Dvinsk, and there were Chassidim in Dvinsk, and there were also Kopist descendants of another son of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Kopister, and they were also like Chabad, and they fought with the Rebbe Marash. They didn't, So the Rebbe Marash wanted to say a minor, and they didn't let it. They caused a ruckus, whatever it was. He couldn't. So I don't know what the cheshbon was, but he figured I'll go to the train station, like he's leaving, or I don't know what. And then over there by the train station, we'll say a minor. So they came to the train. I don't know what. It seems that some of them came. They couldn't really stop them, so they went to the police. They said, "Look, that guy, he doesn't have a permit. Whatever, So the police ran over, and the Rebbe Marash was in the middle of saying a maimer. He was sitting on like the ledge of a subway cart, of a train. And the Rebbe was saying a maimer, and the Chassidim were all around him, and one of the police officers pushed his way through, and he came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe took out from his pocket took out the letter and handed it to him. He read it, and then he saluted the Rebbe, and he backed off, and they kept they protected the parameter, So the Rebbe Marash had such a, to stand in without no interruptions. He just kept, straight
Again
through.
proves that to deal with Eden was much harder than with policemen.
Right. Yeah. So that's the inyan of mitzochen and so on. Then there's the inyan yisoid shebechesed. What is the yisoid? In general, yisoid means connection. Connection. Today there are a lot of good books, whatever it is. So about different. I don't remember which. I think there's a book. I'm not recommending anything to anyone. These aren't Jewish things. Everyone should learn Chassidus, and that's it. But in one of these books, like the road less traveled or whatever, one of these things. So one of the ideas is that a person, you want to know what you love, look at where you put your time. Where you put your time, that's where your love is. A person says, what do you mean? I don't love my phone. I spend a lot of time. Yeah, but, so you have to think about it. You have to, so if you love your family and you don't give them any time, so you don't love them. You say, what do you mean? Of course I do. But whatever, this idea, right? The inyan of Yesoid is that inyan. Where I'm connected to. Where am I drawn? I have a minute. What do I do right away? So that's the inyan. I've also said here many times that Eli Ben Zaken made he's an artist. So he made either a pencil drawing or a pastel of the Rebbe in the midas. Chesed. So in other words, one the Rebbe smiling, one the Rebbe looks very stern. He made these one paper with like a sketch of the Rebbe in different. So Sfiras HaYesoid, he has the Rebbe holding the gartel. Right? So what's the gartel? What does it symbolize? Not the gartel that it's separating the upper part of the body. That's not. The gartel means I'm tying myself. I'm connected. I'm holding on. That's the inyan of Yesod. So here, what the Rebbe says is an interesting thing. Let's say a person is not in the mood. So they apply themselves till they become in the mood. Right? It happens to me many times. I wake up Shabbos morning, I want to prepare a mimer. I don't, but what do you mean? You have to. There's no, right? So I push myself, and then it becomes exciting. Like there's a turning point, the middle. So that's, he says, "V'inyin yisoyche b'chesed hainu, shegam kasher me'ezat tam ein lo mishicha l'Torah mitzvahs." For some reason, he's not attracted to Torah mitzvahs. He doesn't have the patience for it right now. Hine mitzad ahavase laHashem, because of his love, harehu miskasher lazeh b'chol tnuas nafshe. He attaches himself completely. Ad shemis erer b'tshukah l'Torah mitzvahs, till he's inspired. Ve'ad, until shekol machshava dibur ma'aseh shaloi, all his thought, speech, and action, himrach b'Torah mitzvahs. Exclusive, only Torah mitzvahs. Shezeu inyan malchus shebechesed. Right? Malchus, in Chassidus, we spoke about this many times, malchus is all the externals. Speaking, doing. A king, in other words, the king's leadership is to govern all behavior. We don't know what's happening in the heart of the people. Right? Why is it when the king says, if someone doesn't listen to an order of the king, they have to be put to death? You don't say, well, let's first weigh how significant this was. It doesn't work that way. Once the king says something, right? It doesn't matter if he says, put away that plate. Or he says, put away the gun. It doesn't matter.
Rebel.
Right? Yeah. So by the king, it's all Ma'aseh b'Poel. So the complete Malchus Shebechesed is that my Avos Hashem permeates the way I live practically. Shekol Shem Shemidas HaChesed Chul Mikol HaMidas, just the way it is with Chesed. Kein Hu Gam B'Kol HaMidas. Shekol Midah Kula Mikol HaMidas. Every Midah is comprised of all midas working in tandem. Okay? We have a few more minutes. Let's finish now. Page 68 is another paper here. Okay, everyone, yeah, you have it, page 68. Shame שבנפש הליקיס כולו כל מידה מזין המידה is just like by the nefesh halikis every midah has 7. Keinu gam b'nefesh habamis. Nefesh habamis is the same thing. Now I ask myself, why does he have to explain it? Do you think I don't know? We know how the Yetzer Hara works. But this is Sfiras HaEmer. We're supposed to work on, elevate it. So you got to be very specific. So he spells it out. Hashem created them parallel one another. What is chesed shebechesed of the animal soul? I know. His love is expressed openly. He's unabashed. He says, I love that, I don't know. Like anyone who knows me knows that I love carrot cake. It's ava gluya, right? Gvura shebechesed hainu shemitzad avos ledvarim gashmiyan. How do you say this? If someone gets in the way of me and my taivus, I get very angry. I get enraged. I get angry at someone keeping taivus away from me. When someone says to him, it's not appropriate for someone like you to be so vested in grokkat. That's not what a person, and that's what you're, so that, you hate that person. How do you say no? Tiferes shebechesed, what's the Tiferes element? In addition to him being drawn to Gashmius, he gets all excited and he boasts. Oh, I went to a restaurant, this steak and this, right? It's a whole story. He's proud of the fact that he's so attracted to Gashmius. Even at a certain point, when he's not really interested, he pushes himself. He doesn't even want to do an Aveira, but he pushes himself. He's so full, but he's stuffing the chocolate cake in the, he's not even in the mood. But even when someone's trying to stop him, even when someone's embarrassing him, they're assaulting him. They say, insult, not assault. They say, look, Ketzad Yehudi, look at a Yid. Ben Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yaakov, Shokua, B'inyanim, Bahamian. Look at it, look at it. How do you do these things forbidden? Lochem, he fights to this, not to allow that person to ruin his fun. That's what Heitzah B'Chesed is. He overcomes. In other words, the person is intimidating. It's getting to him, but that's Zel Inyan Heitzah B'Chesed. The taiva is so great. He becomes so attached. Every thought, every spoken word, everything he does are about earthy things. Nothing is of purpose. It's just pleasure seeking. He falls to lower and lower levels till he comes to forbidden things. It's a very interesting way that the Rebbe presents it. In other Mamorim, it's presented in other ways. So these are the 100 steps. Yeah, there's a lot to think about. I would just say that there's an interesting idea that the Rebbe speaks about sometimes with regards to looking at the spheres from top down and from bottom up. Imagine you were starting Chesed Shebechesed on Shavuos and working back. The first day was Malchus Shebemalchus. The Rebbe brings maybe Pesach Sheni, like Lag BaOmer versus, I don't remember exactly what it is after. Maybe today, Tiferes Shebe Tiferes is Haid Sheba Haid.
Oh,
Huh?
parallel numbers, you're saying?
If you go backwards, anyway, so why would you do that? Why would you? Because think about it. The way that in our avodah of refinement, so Malchus Shebechesed is the ultimate refinement. All my thought, speech, and action is in love of Hashem. But in the negative side, Malchus Shebechesed is the worst.
Say eat frog at morning first.
Eat right. Yeah. Right? In other words, the way he just described it, each one is drawing the person down lower and lower. You netzach, and then hoid, and then. So when you're crawling out, you have to crawl out from the bottom first, right? So you have to invert, you have to reverse all the spheres. So then you would start with the other way. First not to be completely immersed, and then So, Akaponim, we're going to stop here. Okay, we have an agreement.